Kentucky, we have created a tool that we've basically adapted a tool that has been used in other communities to look at neighborhoods and assess the walkability, but to do it in a way that empowers the residents to get them to participate. And what we've done in Louisville is to incorporate that into our neighborhood planning program through the Planning and Design Division, or through the Planning Commission, and make that part of the adopted plan, so the neighborhood can feel they have ownership in that and can carry it through. So it perhaps has some more teeth than usual. So it's more than just an assessment tool, it's also a way for them to identify priorities. Successful is yet to be determined, although I would say successful in the sense that our initial feedback was extremely positive, and really did feel like they had been empowered by it, that they were inspired by being able to communicate their barriers and opportunities for walkability in their neighborhoods, and particularly in the ones we have done. We did have one neighborhood that did it as part of, not necessarily a part of the neighborhood plan process, but as part of a Safe Routes to School application. And the Parent-Teacher Association organized to use the survey tool and walk the area around the a mile or two radius around the school, and identify issues and barriers and such. And so for them it was very successful, because they were able to use that in their grant application and identify key projects. So hopefully we'll see the fruition of that, but more than anything it's the ownership and the feedback of them saying, we want to make sure, how do we get this done? Because they were adamant about carrying that through. I think our biggest challenge initially from the development of the tool, for example, is to design it in a way that is easy to use, that they can go out with a facilitator and do it within a reasonable time period, a 2-hour time period on an evening or a weekend, a Saturday morning, for example. So the design of the tool in a way that it's accessible and can be communicated. The other part is engaging. How do we actually get the most participation in it? And we use the neighborhood association to engage the residents. And they were successful in the first couple. I mean, we had enough people to walk the entire neighborhood, but yet we would like to see more participation, either from the folks who aren't the typical participants in neighborhood projects, for example, the ones who are just most engaged, or youth. So we would like to see it done in a way that can encourage greater participation, and obviously that's a challenge alone. The other challenge that we are identifying now is, with the walkability survey, is to identify once they've identified their priorities, how does this become real? How does it become implemented? And so our next challenge is working with our Public Works Agency, working with our council, working in ways that create a systematic way of implementing this. And it's going to be a challenge, because we not only Louisville, but I'm sure other cities have tight budgets and more needs than resources. With our neighborhood plan process, we have a defined within our ordinance, city ordinance, a defined process that you have to follow. However, it's minimal in terms of what's required. So for us we have worked to establish a protocol that goes beyond what's expected, and basically try to identify ways that the neighborhood can participate more than just a public meeting or a public hearing once the plan is drafted. By that point, it's too late. So to identify ways along the process that we can actively engage them, to where by the time we reach the end, there's a consensus and there's ownership. That's our goal. Unless it becomes policy, The individuals that carry this through, what if they leave? What if the next round of individuals involved? So we need to find ways that makes this standard, a standard practice, that it becomes policy, or it becomes a collective amongst the neighborhood associations, that there's some way that this can be carried through, that perhaps it becomes part of the adopted ordinance, that a walking survey becomes the instrument, or some way like that. But it's always a challenge, is to create ways that an item like this, obviously some success, having neighborhoods that actually see fruition of their ideas is one way, because it becomes contagious at that point. But look at what other communities have done. That's what we did. Look at what was successful. Look at how you can adapt to your unique circumstances, or in a way that is practical for you. That was our first lesson. The other one is to simplify it in a way that you can gain the most input, but yet can facilitate it in a way that can get the most participation. And also to create a way that it can be communicated in the most wide variety of mediums, whether it's through an adopted plan, or whether it's through a neighborhood carrying it to their council representative, or to the mayor, or to Public Works, or to whoever it is, to say, look, here's what we accomplished. Here's what we've identified, and how can you help us?